Hello everyone. Hi. What's up? I hope you all are doing extremely well. So, I'm back with yet another book. This time it is BKS Iyengar's The Illustrated Light on Yoga. Let's slowly and steadily read this book. This session will last for about 30 minutes and then we'll continue with different parts. So altogether, as you can see on the screen, towards the top right corner, there are 179 pages. So I think maybe around 5 parts would be great. So let's see what the book has to offer. Then let's get started. An easy to follow version of the classic introduction to yoga. Okay, so let's start. Mr. Iyengar's Light on Yoga has, since it was first published over 25 years ago, enabled many to follow his example. This new concise edition will bring the basic art of yoga to this much wider audience and it will enable it to be practiced at the very highest level. Yehudi Mehuin. The Illustrated Light on Yoga is a straightforward and comprehensive introduction for the beginner by the acknowledged expert on the subject, illustrated throughout with 150 photographs carefully positioned in the relevant part of the text for easy reference. It includes an introduction to the philosophy and practice of yoga, detailed descriptions of 57 key postures, techniques for stilling the mind through breathing exercises, a 35-week course progressing from a beginner to intermediate level, a full glossary of yoga terms. So BK Iyengar has been teaching and demonstrating yoga for more than 50 years. He has revealed million students and has established centers all over the world. Then The Illustrated Light on Yoga, BKS Iyengar's classic book, Light on Yoga is a comprehensive introduction to yoga with detailed descriptions of over 200 postures, asanas and 14 breathing exercises, pranayamas. This book, The Illustrated Light on Yoga, introduces 57 key asanas and provides a brief summary of pranayama. The book is illustrated throughout with photographs positioned in the relevant part of the text. The student can therefore practice a posture without the aid of a teacher. An appendix provides an asana course for the continuing student. The Illustrated Light on Yoga is a comprehensive yet straightforward introduction for the beginner by the acknowledged expert on the subject. Then this is all the introduction part, of course, and then let's quickly go through it. Okay, this is prayer. I bow before the noblest of sages, Patanjali, who brought serenity of mind by his work on yoga, clarity of speech by his work on grammar, and purity of body by his work on medicine. I salute Adiswara. I salute Adiswara. So yeah, that's how it's spelled. I salute Adiswara, the primeval, right? So I salute Adiswara, the primeval Lord Shiva, who taught first the science of Hatha Yoga, a science that stands out as a ladder for those who wish to scale the heights of Raja Yoga. Cool. So then we have contents that would include foreword by Yehudi Mehuin, preface, then part 1, what is yoga, the stages of yoga, then part 2, yogasanas, hints and cautions, technique and effects of asanas, part 3, pranayama, hints and cautions, technique and effects of pranayama. Then you have appendix, asana courses, table of asanas, glossary, international addresses, index. So then let's quickly get started with what is this? This is foreword, I guess. Yes, we have foreword by Yehudi Mehuin. The practice of yoga induces a primary sense of measure and proportion. Reduced to your own body, our first instrument, we learn to play it, drawing from it maximum resonance and harmony. With unflagging patience, we refine and animate every cell as we return daily to the attack, unlocking and liberating capacities otherwise condemned to frustration and death. Each unfulfilled area frustration and death. Each unfulfilled area of tissue and nerve or brain or lung each unfulfilled area of tissue and nerve, of brain or lung, is a challenge to our will and integrity, or otherwise a source of frustration and death. Whoever has had the privilege of receiving Mr. Iyengar's attention or of witnessing the precision, refinement, and beauty of his art is introduced to that vision of perfection and innocence which is man as first created, unarmed, unashamed Son of God, Lord of creation, in the Garden of Eden. The tree of knowledge has indeed yielded much fruit of great variety, sweet, poisonous, bitter, wholesome, according to our use of it. But is not more imperative than ever that we cultivate the tree, that we nourish its roots. The practice of yoga over the past 30 years has convinced me that most of our fundamental attitudes to life have their physical counterparts in the body. This comparison, right? That's how it's spelled. So, thus, comparison and criticism must begin with the alignment of our own left and right sides to a degree at which even finer adjustments are feasible. Or strength of will may cause us to start by stretching the body from the toes to the top of the head in defiance of gravity. Impetus and ambition might begin with the sense of weight and speed that comes with free swinging limbs instead of the control of prolonged balance on foot, feet, or hands, which gives poise. Tenacity is gained by stretching in various yoga postures for minutes at a time, while calmness comes with quiet, consistent breathing and the expansion of the lungs. Continuity and a sense of universal come with the knowledge of the inevitable alteration of tension and relaxation in eternal rhythms of which each inhalation and exhalation constitutes one cycle, wave, or vibration among the countless myriads which are the universe. What is alternative? Thwarted, warped. Okay, that's how it's spelled, I guess. So, thwarted, warped people condemning the order of things, cripples, criticizing the upright, autocrats, slumped in expectancy coronary attitudes, the tragic spectacle of people working out their own imbalance and frustration on others. Yoga, as practiced by Mr. Iyengar, is the dedicated votive offering of a man who brings himself to the altar alone and clean in body and mind, focused in attention and will, offering in simplicity and innocence, not a burnt sacrifice, but simply himself raised to his own highest potential. It is a technique ideally suited to prevent physical and mental illness and to protect the body generally, developing an inevitable sense of self-reliance and assurance. By its very nature, it is inextricably associated with the universal laws. Respect for life, truth, and patience respect for life, truth, and patience are all indispensable factors in the drawing of a quiet breath, in calmness of mind and firmness of will. In this lie the moral virtues inherent in yoga. For these reasons, it demands a complete and total effort involving and forming the whole human being. No mechanical repetition is involved and no lip service as in the case of good resolutions or formal prayers. By its very nature, it is each time and every moment a living act. Mr. Iyengar's Light on Yoga has, since it was first published in 1996, enabled many to follow his example and become teachers to carry on his work. I was glad at the time to share in its presentation, and I welcome this new concise edition equally enthusiastically. It will bring the basic art of yoga to a much wider audience and will enable it to be practiced at the very highest level. London, 1980. Okay. Preface. It is only thanks to persistent encouragement of my devoted friends and pupils that this book is now achieved. For alone, I would have repeatedly faltered or faltered, not only because of my inadequate command of the English language, but because I would have lost heart without their buoyant support and assurance. Yoga is a timeless, pragmatic science evolved over thousands of years, dealing with the physical, moral, mental, and spiritual well-being of a man as a whole. The first took to systemize this practice was the classic treatise, the Yoga Sutras or aphorisms of Patanjali, dating from 200 BC. Unfortunately, most of the books one second. So, unfortunately, most of the books published on yoga in our day have been unworthy of both the subject and its first great exponent, as they are superficial, popular, and at times misleading. I have even been asked by their readers whether I can drink acid, chew glass, walk through fire, make myself invisible, or perform other magical acts. Scholarly and reliable expositions of the religious and philosophical texts already exist in most languages, but the practice of an art is more difficult to communicate than a purely literary or philosophical concept. The original title of this book was The Concise Light on Yoga, based upon My Light on Yoga, which describes simply but in great detail the asanas, postures, and pranayamas, breathing disciplines. This book provides a comprehensive introduction to yoga. It describes the techniques for 57 asanas with the aid of 146 photographs, and it also with the aid of 146 photographs, and it also covers pranayama with the aid of another 4 photographs. This new large format edition makes it even more accessible. The Western reader may be surprised at the recurring reference to the universal spirit, to mythology, and even to philosophical and moral principles. He must not forget that in ancient times, all the higher achievements of man in knowledge, art, and power were part of religion and were assumed to belong to God and to his priestly servants on earth. The Catholic Pope is the last such embodiment of divine knowledge and power in the West. But formerly, even in the Western world, music, painting, architecture, philosophy, and medicine, as well as wars, were always in the service of God. It is only very recently in India that these arts and sciences have begun to shake off the divine, but with the due respect begun to shake off the divine, but with due respect for the emancipation of man's will as distinct from the divine will. We in India continue to value the purity of purpose, the humility of discipline, and the selflessness that are the legacy of our long bondage to God. I consider it important as well as interesting that the reader should know the origin of asanas, and I have therefore included legends handed down by practicing yogis and sages. All the ancient commentaries on yoga have stressed that it is essential to work under the direction of a guru, master, and although my experience proves the wisdom of this rule, I have endeavored with all humility in this book to guide the reader, both teacher and student, to a correct and safe method of mastering these asanas and pranayamas. In the appendix, I have introduced a 35-week course for the intense practitioner, grouping the asana stage by stage according to their structure. Study in detail the hints and cautions before attempting the asana and pranayama techniques. I am sincerely grateful to my esteemed friend and pupil, Mr. Yehudi Mehuin, for his forward and immeasurable support. I am indebted to my pupil, Mr. B.I. Tarapurewala, for his collaboration in the preparation of this book. I express my sincere gratitude to G.G. Welling of Pune, India, for their personal supervision and interest in taking innumerable photographs for me and for placing the resources of their studio at my disposal. So that is written by B.K.S. Iyengar. Then part 1, what is yoga? The word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit, let's start again. Slowly and steadily. The word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit root yuj, something like that, meaning to bind, join, attach, and yoke, to direct and concentrate one's attention on, to use and apply. It also means union or communion. It is the true union of our will with the will of God. It thus means, says Mahadev Desai in his introduction to the Gita according to Gandhi, the yoking of all the powers of body, mind, and soul to God. It means the disciplining of the intellect, the mind, the emotions, the will, which the yoga presupposes. It means a poise of the soul, which enables one to look at life in all its aspects evenly. Yoga is one of the 6 orthodox systems of Indian philosophy. It was collated, coordinated, and systematized by Patanjali in his classical work, the Yoga Sutras, which consists of 185 Ters, right? So ters, aphorisms. In Indian thought, everything is permeated by the supreme universal spirit, Paramatma or God, of which the individual human spirit, Jivatma, is a part. The system of yoga is so called because it teaches the means by which the Jivatma can be united to or be in communion with the Paramatma and so secure liberation, that is moksha or moksha. One who follows the path of yoga is a yogi or yogin. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is the most important authority on yoga philosophy, Sri Krishna explains to Arjuna the meaning of yoga as the deliverance from contact with pain and sorrow. It is said, when his mind, intellect and self, that is ahamkara, are under control, freed from restless desire, so that they can rest in the spirit within, a man becomes a yukta, one in communion with God. A lamp does not flicker in a place where no winds blow. So it is with a yogi who controls his mind, intellect and self, being absorbed in the spirit within him. When the restlessness of mind, intellect and self is still throughout, I think once again let's start. When his mind, intellect and self, that is ahamkara, are under control, freed from restless desire, so that they rest in, let's read again. When his mind, intellect and self, that is ahamkara, are under control, freed from restless desire, so that they rest in spirit within, a man, what's wrong with me? This time let's read it correctly. When his mind, intellect and self, ahamkara, are under control, freed from restless desire, so that they rest in the spirit within, a man becomes a yukta, one in communion with God. A lamp does not flicker in a place where no winds blow. So it is with a yogi who controls his mind, intellect and self, being absorbed in the spirit within him. When the restlessness of mind, intellect and self is stilled through the practice of yoga, the yogi, by the grace of the spirit within himself, finds fulfillment. Then he knows that the joy eternal, which is beyond the pale of the senses, which his reason cannot grasp, he abides in this reality and moves not therefrom. He has found the treasure above all others. There is nothing higher than this. He who has achieved it shall not be moved by the greatest sorrow. This is the real meaning of yoga, a deliverance from contact with pain and sorrow. As well as cut diamond, as a well-cut diamond has many facets or facets, its facets. As a well-cut diamond has many facets, each reflecting surface has a different color of light. So does the word yoga. Each facet reflect. Let's read again. As a well-cut diamond has many facets, each reflecting a different color of light. So does the word yoga. Each facet reflecting a different shade of meaning and revealing different aspects of the entire range of human endeavor to win inner peace and happiness. The Bhagavad Gita also gives other explanations of the term yoga and lays stress upon karma yoga, yoga by action. It is said, work alone is your privilege, never the fruits thereof. Never let the fruits of action be your motive and never cease to work. Work in the name of Lord, abandoning selfish desires. Be not affected by success or failure. This equipoise is called yoga. Yoga has also been described as wisdom in work or skillful living amongst activists with harmony and moderation. Yoga is not for him who gorges too much, not for him who starves himself. It is not for him who sleeps too much, nor for him who stays awake. By moderation in eating and in resting, by regulation in working, and by concordance in sleeping and waking, yoga destroys all pain and sorrow. The Kathopanishad describes yoga thus: when the senses are still, when the mind is at rest, when the intellect wavers not, then say the wise is reached the highest stage. One second. So anyway, sorry for the disturbance, people. Where were we? Yes. One second. Yes, yoga destroys all pain and sorrow. The Kathopanishad describes yoga thus: when the senses are still, when the mind is at rest, when the intellect wavers not, then say the wise is reached the highest stage. This steady control of the senses and mind has been defined as yoga. He who attains it is free from delusion. In the second aphorism, oh my god, I'm spelling it very badly. In the second aphorism of the first chapter of the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali describes yoga as chitta, vritti, nirodha. This may be translated as the restraint of mental mortifications or as suppression of the fluctuations of consciousness. So consciousness is chitta, restraint is nirodha, suppression is nirodha, and fluctuations or modifications are vritti. The word chitta denotes the mind in its total or collective sense as being composed of three categories. Okay? That is mind, manas, that is individual mind having the power and faculty of attention, selection and rejection. It is the oscillating, indecisive faculty of the mind. Intelligence or reason, buddhi, that is the decisive state which determines the distinction between things. Then ago, that is ahamkara, literally the I maker, the state which ascertains that I know. Okay, it's the I maker. The word vritti is derived from the Sanskrit root vrt, meaning to turn, to revolve, to roll on. It thus means course of action, behavior, mode of being, condition or mental state. Yoga is the method by which the restless mind is calmed and the energy directed into constructive channels. As a mighty river which, when properly harnessed by dams and canals, creates a vast reservoir of water, prevents famine and provides abundant power for industry, so also the mind, when controlled, provides a reservoir of peace and generates abundant energy for human uplift. The problem of controlling the mind is not capable of easy solution, as borne out by the following dialogue in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, Krishna, you have told me of yoga as a communion with Brahma or Brahman, the universal spirit which is ever one. But how can this be permanent? Since the mind is so restless and inconsistent, the mind is impetuous and stubborn, strong and willful, as difficult to harness as the wind. Sri Krishna replies, undoubtedly the mind is restless and hard to control, but it can be trained by constant practice, abhyasa, and by freedom from desire, vairagya. A man who cannot control his mind will find it difficult to attain this divine communion. But the self-controlled man can attain it if he tries hard and directs his energy by the right means. The stages of yoga. The right means are just as important as the end in view. Patanjali enumerates these means as the 8 limbs or stages of yoga for the quest of the soul. They are yama, universal moral commandments; niyama, self-purification by discipline; asana, posture; pranayama, rhythmic control of the breath; pratyahara, withdrawal and emancipation of the mind from the domination of the senses and exterior objects; dharana, concentration; dhyana, meditation; samadhi, a state of super consciousness brought about by profound meditation, in which the individual aspirant, that is sadhaka, becomes one with the object of his meditation, Paramatma or the universal spirit. So yama and niyama control the yogi's passions and emotions and keep him in let's start again. So yama and niyama control the yogi's passions and emotions and keep him in harmony with his fellow man. Asanas keep the body healthy and strong and in harmony with the nature. Finally, the yogi becomes free of body consciousness. He conquers the body and renders it a fit vehicle for the soul. The first 3 stages are the outward quest, that is Bahiranga Sadhana. The next 2 stages, Pranayama and Pratyahara, teach the aspirant to regulate breathing and thereby control the mind. This helps to free the senses from the thraldom of the objects of desire. These 2 stages of yoga are known as inner quest, that is Antaranga Sadhana. Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi take the yogi into the innermost recesses of his soul. The yogi does not look heavenward to find God. He knows that he is within, being known as the Antaratma, the inner self. The last three stages keep him in harmony with the, let's start again. The last three stages keep him in harmony with himself and his maker. These stages are called as Antaratma Sadhana, the quest of the soul. By profound meditation, the knower, the knowledge and the known become one. The seer, the sight and the seen have no separate existence from each other. It is like a great musician becoming one with its instrument and the music that comes from it. Then the yogi stands in his own nature and realizes Then the yogi stands in his own nature and realizes his self, Atman, the part of the Supreme Soul within himself. There are different paths, that is margas, by which a man travels to his maker. Okay, that is God. The active man finds realization through karma marga, in which a man realizes his own divinity through work and duty. The emotional man finds it through bhakti marga, where there is realization through devotion to and love of a personal God. The intellectual man pursues jnana, I guess, if that's the thing. I think let's read this para again. There are different paths, or that is margas, by which a man travels to let's read again. There are different paths, that is margas, by which a man travels to his maker. The active man finds realization through karma marga, in which a man realizes his own divinity through work and duty. The emotional man finds it through bhakti marga, where there is realization through devotion to and love of a personal God. The intellectual man pursues jnana marga, where realization comes through knowledge. The meditative or reflective man follows yoga marga and realizes his own divinity through control of mind. Okay, so happy is a man who knows how to distinguish the real from the unreal, the eternal from the transistent, and the good from the pleasant by his discrimination and wisdom. Twice blessed is he who knows true love and can love all God's creatures. He who knows selflessly for the welfare of others with love in his heart is thrice blessed. But the man who combines within his mortal frame knowledge, love and selfless service is holy and becomes a place of pilgrimage, like the confluence of the rivers Ganga, Saraswati and Jamuna. Those who meet him become calm and purified. Mind is the king of senses. One who has conquered his mind, senses, passions, thought and reason is a king among men. Okay, and reason is a king among men. Okay, he is a king among men. So he is fit for Raja Yoga, the royal union with the universal spirit. He has inner light. He who has conquered his mind is Raja Yogi. The word Raja means a king. The expression Raja Yoga implies a complete mastery of the self. Though Patanjali explains the ways to control the mind, he nowhere states in his aphorisms that this science is Raja Yoga, but calls it Astanga Yoga, or the 8 stages limbs of yoga, as it implies complete mastery of the self. One may call it, as it implies complete mastery of the self, one may call it the science of Raja Yoga. Okay, so I think that will be for this video, guys. We'll continue with it later on.